Hello, my name is Jeppe Kjaersgaard and I'm with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Today I will talk about alternative management tools, which is a concept developed for the groundwater protection rule. Alternative management tools, or AMTs, are specific cropping practices or solutions to address nitrate leaching losses to the groundwater. And here's an outline for my talk today. I'm going to provide a background on what alternative management tools are, where they may be used, and how they fit in with the groundwater protection rule. I'm also going to give examples of AMTs and the Department of Agriculture's proposed approach to evaluate the AMTs. I'm not going to go over the groundwater protection rule in much detail, but I do want to provide a few highlights to show where the alternative management tools fit in. So the groundwater protection rule applies to the use of nitrogen fertilizer. It encourages and promotes science-based cropping practices to reduce nitrate leaching losses to the groundwater. And it focuses on protecting groundwater in areas that are where the groundwater is vulnerable to contamination by nitrate. There are two parts to the rule. Part 1 restricts the application of nitrogen fertilizer in the fall and on frozen ground in areas where the groundwater is vulnerable to contamination. And Part 2 responds to public wells with high nitrate levels. And since there are many parts of the groundwater protection rule I'm not covering, please check out our website. The link is provided on this slide for more information, or contact Larry Gunderson in case you have any questions. The alternative management tools relates to Part 2 of the groundwater protection rule. Part 2 applies only to drinking water supply management areas where the wells have high nitrate levels. So what is a drinking water supply management area? Well, a drinking water supply management area, or a DRISMA, is the area a public water well draws its water from and where it takes up to 10 years for the groundwater to reach the well. DRISMAs are established by the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, and they are based on computer modeling. And then the boundaries of the DRISMA is squared off to follow common boundaries such as road or property lines. Here's an example from Verndale, and you might recognize Highway 10 that runs diagonal across the image. And here's the DRISMA then that's been overlaid onto that aerial image. And so producers who farms within a DRISMA may be subject to Part 2 of the groundwater protection rule, depending on what the nitrate levels are in the water of the well. So DRISMAs are assigned into one of 4 levels if there are elevated nitrogen concentrations in the well water. Starting at a lower threshold of 5.4 milligrams per liter of nitrate nitrogen, these levels determine the action the Department of Agriculture will take in that DRISMA. All DRISMAs start at a level 1 or 2, but can move to level 3 or 4 if the nitrate nitrogen concentration increases in the water, or if best management practices that help reduce nitrate leaching losses are not implemented. The implementation of these best management practices at level 1 and level 2 are voluntary, whereas a DRISMA that has moved to level 3 or level 4, the implementation of the practices is regulatory. At this point, there are 6 municipal DRISMAs in level 1, and there are 16 in level 2, as is shown on this map with yellow and red dots. And there are 10 DRISMAs where more information is needed to determine if elevated nitrogen concentrations are from other sources than crop production, and those are the ones that are indicated with green dots. There are currently no DRISMAs in level 3 or level 4. We have a map on the Department of Agriculture's website, and the link is provided here on this slide that shows that's zoomable, and it shows the location and the extent of all these DRISMAs. So anyone can go in and look at that map and determine if a particular property or field is located within a DRISMA. Also shown on this map are, with a blue outline around the dots, are non-municipal wells that has elevated nitrate content. For DRISMAs that are placed in level 2, 3, or 4, the Department of Agriculture will form a local advisory team that's made up of local farmers and agronomists. And the idea is that this local advisory team will recommend appropriate practices or best management practices that will help reduce the nitrate leaching losses. And as part of that process, the local advisory team will also consider alternative management tools. The nitrogen fertilizer best management practices are developed by the University of Minnesota based on their research, both past research and ongoing research. They are the BMPs are regionally based, so that BMPs for a particular region accounts for both the climate, soil conditions, and crop management systems within that region. And the BMPs are based on the 4R principles and addresses both nitrogen rate, timing, placement, and source. But then there are situations where the best management practices might not fully capture all practices that are available or are in use. And so that's why the concept of alternative management tools is developed. And so here's the definition of what the AMTs are. And they are locally developed solutions for addressing groundwater nitrate problems that are implemented on a site-specific basis. So again, the term AMT, that is a construct from the groundwater protection rule that is used to represent practices other than nitrogen fertilizer BMPs to help protect groundwater from nitrate leaching losses. And in some cases, AMTs may even provide an advanced level of nitrate loss reduction. In many cases, AMTs may include practices or programs that have existed for even years, as well as new technologies that are ongoing a broader adoption. In many cases, AMTs are practices that are developed by producers based on local conditions and are used locally. And in some cases, the AMTs may be at least as beneficial or even more beneficial compared to AMTs, in which case that the AMTs can be used by a producer instead of a particular BMP. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. First, I just want to provide a few examples of what AMTs may be. And now we have a longer list on our website at the Department of Agriculture's website that shows this list, and I have provided the link on this slide. Or you could just go ahead and Google Minnesota Department of Agriculture alternative management tools, and then that'll be the first link that shows on the page. But some of the examples are alternative management systems that could be enhancing or extending the crop rotation, could also be including nitrogen scavengers into the crop rotation, or considering land set-aside programs such as CRP. Other examples are advanced nitrogen fertilizer management practices or new technologies that can increase nitrogen use efficiency, similar to some of those technologies that are being offered from industry. Another example of an AMT is enrolling into the Minnesota Agricultural Water Quality Certification Program. And many of these practices have been used for years by producers, co-ops, and others. But the AMT concept allows us to recognize practices in addition to the University of Minnesota BMPs that are already out there and are being used for the benefit of nitrate leaching loss reduction. And AMTs allows us to utilize the local knowledge and experience that producers have and to implement practices that are useful and meaningful based on local conditions. It also allows us to accommodate new ideas and practices that might not have been fully considered in the University of Minnesota BMPs. It also provides flexibility in situations where BMP might not work or may be insufficient. And more importantly, it also helps us recognize the practices that producers are already using, and they can get credit for what they have already implemented. And also AMTs helps to further engage the agricultural community in problem solving. The Department of Agriculture will act as a clearinghouse for the AMTs, and we will maintain a list on our website. We expect that practices will be added to the AMT list, and it'll be a continuous process, and so the list will keep growing. Some of the AMTs may be for specific conditions, whereas others might apply statewide. To evaluate the AMTs before they're added to our list, we are developing a process to assess their effectiveness. And that is both to provide guidance for the local advisory teams and to develop tables showing which AMTs that could be used instead of particular BMPs. And we'll be working with the agricultural community for input on the AMT evaluation process. We have developed some criteria for evaluating the AMTs. And a primary one is in situations where there is a direct documentation for groundwater nitrate leaching loss reduction after implementing an AMT. But in many situations, that information may not be available. So we will also look at derived water quality benefits, such as practices that might help improve crop nitrogen use efficiency, that might help reduce the nitrogen application rate, that increases the nitrate uptake by the crop, that it increases the nitrogen immobilization or reduces the residual soil nitrogen after the growing season. The process will be led by staff from the Department of Agriculture, but it will be a scientific process based on a review of the scientific literature, and could also include consulting with experts from the University of Minnesota or input from the agricultural industry or commodity group leaders, as well as utilizing computer modeling and look at other relevant information such as research trial data. To determine if an AMT could be used instead of a BMP, that'll be a process that will be guided by the 4R principles, and we'll be looking at to determine if an AMT has benefits that are comparable to that of a particular BMP. The AMTs will likely be broken out by BMP region, and they might be conditional, so that there might be certain conditions where a particular AMT might be relevant to use. We are expecting there will be 2 tracks to add AMTs to our list. One is if producers or LAT members or others that are suggesting an additional AMT, similar to what has occurred already, where we have had several AMTs that's been suggested to us over the last several decades. So the MGA will do the brunt of the work to identify and review any available information that is about that AMT, and as part of that review, it will be on a case-by-case basis. And then, based on that review, we'll make a determination of how effective that AMT is to reduce nitrate leaching losses. In situations where there's no information available, the Department of Agriculture may make a professional judgment call after consultation with the University of Minnesota soil fertility experts and agricultural commodity group leadership. A second track applies if industry or service provider or other vendors is requesting to have a product or service added as an AMT. In that place, the requester is expected to provide scientific data to show the water quality benefit of that AMT. It could be in the form of research reports that must include materials and methods, results, an appropriate statistical analysis and discussion section. And it must correspond to the particular product or service that is being sought to be added to the AMT list. User testimonials, news articles, photos, and such will not be considered as part of that evaluation. And then the idea is to develop a matrix similar to the one that's shown on this slide. In the red box is listed the current University of Minnesota BMPs for coarse textured soils. And then in the green box are examples of AMTs. And again, this is just a sample. There are many more. And the idea is that for each cell, there will be an indication of whether a particular AMT can be used instead of a particular BMP. That information will be useful both for LAT members, but also for individual producers as they are reviewing their options for practices that might be needed to reduce nitrate leaching losses in the DRISMA where they may be operating. And the Minnesota Department of Agriculture has several technologies to evaluate nitrate leaching losses after the implementation of BMPs or AMTs. Some of these practices or techniques relate to field monitoring, but another one relates to utilizing computer models to estimate nitrate leaching losses. And that could be used both to determine leaching losses under current conditions as well as various scenarios, whether those scenarios are evaluating past cropping and weather conditions or current cropping and weather conditions, as well as the nitrate leaching losses after implementing the implementation of BMPs or AMTs. So, in summary, I provided a brief background of the groundwater protection rule and an overview of what alternative management tools are, and provided some examples and of AMTs, why they're being considered as part of the groundwater protection rule, and then a proposed process for evaluating the AMTs. And with that, thank you for your attention, and please let me know if you have any questions.